we wanted something, rich in minerals like a limestone.
We have battle dogs going on behind us.
Battle dogs.
So that's what you're hearing, are battle dogs.
Hi. Hi.
I'm your host, Jeff Sart. We're going to take you behind the scenes with the craft distillers who are pouring their heart and soul into crafting the next version of America's spirit. This is the Great American Whiskey Cookers. Welcome to this edition of the Great American Whiskey Cookers. It's nice and cold here in Iowa. There's snow behind us. It's like 20, 22 degrees here. So we figured, you know what? Let's go north to Fairbault, Minnesota and find out what 10,000 Drops is putting out.
And we'll go right by the largest tomato greenhouse in the Midwest. A huge sucker, lights up the sky forever. You'll be so impressed.
I doubt it. Hi, I'm Jeff Sart. On this edition of the Great American Whiskey Cookers, we figured since it's February, let's head north to Fairbault, Minnesota, where it's 24 degrees right now, and check out 10,000 Drops Distillery and see just exactly what their 4-year-old bourbon is all about. Check it out. Welcome to this edition of the Great American Whiskey Cookers. Today we are in Fairbault, Minnesota, and we're talking to Rob Krachowski and Jake Vistendahl of 10,000 Drops Distillery. So what we're going to learn about today is their whiskey, their bourbon that just came out in October, right? Of 2022. This is 2023. And they also have a couple other products. So Rob, tell me a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Okay, like you said, I'm Rob, and I'm the head distiller here at 10,000 Drops. And Jake and I have known each other, Stormy, for since grade school.
Yep.
And we eventually kind of went our own separate ways. Still stayed as friends. And about 8 years ago, we were all getting tired of what we were doing. I think Jake was managing. But you had stepped off into Target corporate for a minute, and then Pat he'd been in bartending all his life, and
because you have a third partner.
Pat is not here today.
Right?
Yes.
And
Pat, what's Pat's last name?
Jacobs.
Jacob.
But his dog's here. So.
His dog's here. So.
Yeah, Sherlock. We have two other people, we have two other characters that are here today. Sherlock, who's laying down, and then Stormy, who keeps butting in. So you might see them every once in a while.
And and then I was working at a biodiesel company in Pennsylvania, and right around the time they were getting sick of what they were doing or getting laid off, I started hobby distilling, because the process of the bio plant involved high vacuum distillation, and I was like, I can do this, and really wasn't into home brewing, and so found a guy on the southern Indiana, Kentucky border that did copper work, and he built me a little 5-gallon copper pot, and we started making liquor out of corn syrup.
Out of corn syrup.
Corn syrup. Yeah, the first batch was, I didn't notice it was vanilla flavored corn syrup.
We thought it was great. But
You thought it was great.
Back then.
But in reality, it was
harsh.
Yeah.
It was pretty harsh.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And, then that slowly kind of morphed into, I got, bigger stills, and slowly started working into all grain mashes. And, eventually started talking on the phone of, hey, what are you guys doing? Well, kind of looking for work. And
so that brought you back here?
Brought me and my wife back here, and Jake's family has owned this building since the mid-90s, and between our skill set of running a business, understanding how to manage a bar, and making spirits, it just seemed made sense.
Okay. All right, Jake. So tell me a little bit about you and your backstory.
Oh man, the origin story. No.
Yeah, the origin story.
Yeah, as Rob said, Pat, Rob, and I all went to elementary, junior high, high school together up in the cities. And Pat and I went to college together just down the road. We're roommates. We've all been real close over the years, Rob being a little further away throughout his travels. He skipped over quite a few jobs that he's had. And so we've all sort of had, I was in the service industry for a long time, but doing all sorts of stuff, went to design school, and Pat was in the service industry, but also sold insurance, and once Minnesota changed the laws, which was 2008, I think, allowing for micro distilleries to occur, that's sort of what Rob was out doing his moonshine thing, and we were just like, maybe we could make this happen. So at the time there was a brewery next door to us before we ever existed, and they just opened. And my dad was like, "Oh, come check out Fairbault, see what's, And we're like, we'd like to be located in the Twin Cities. That's where we're all from, but we'll come check it out." And, took about 2 meetings down here before we realized that this is probably the spot for it.
And did you know that this building was going to be the building that you wanted?
Yeah, pretty much right away.
And you guys had to do quite a bit of renovation to the building, right?
3 years worth.
Yeah.
First clearing it out to make it a blank canvas to see what we had. Like I was saying, it was, a furniture factory, turn of the century, then plastics factory, mid-century, nothing in the 80s, and then Jake's dad bought it in the 90s, and it was architectural salvage and antiques.
So we used to tear down, my first job ever was tearing down buildings and then pulling out anything that was deemed of value by my father. Yeah, so salvage work. So this whole complex, this building and the other 5 were filled floor to ceiling with, like, the second floor, which is now the mezzanine, that was entirely doors when we took out. Oak doors.
4,000 square feet of doors.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. This was all like lighting, there was 8 rooms up front here with different antique dealers. So it took us probably 6 months to clear. And we just started, ripping and tearing into this place.
We're standing here in the distillery room. Right behind us is a Vendome still, right? This is your still.
Yep, that's our still.
Walk me through what you do here and what's going on.
Okay, so this is 250 gallon Vendome hybrid still. So it's kind of a pot column hybrid. So, a pot still, you basically have to charge it every time you want to use it.
Okay.
And then run it and then empty it, clean it, do the thing, as opposed to like a continuous flow still, which is just the column and everything gets separated out and you don't stop running it.
All right.
It just keeps going. So, this is where everything goes in. So you load your mash or your low wines into here. Everything is steam driven. So we have a low pressure steam boiler in the back.
Okay.
And then everything is controlled by these valves back here. So if you want to strip things out like hot and heavy, we've got the 1.5 inch here and then a 1/2 inch here. So really fine controls. And then depending on how clean you want your spirit to be, there's plates called bubble cap trays.
All right.
In between each of these sight lenses. And if you close any of these valves back here, the spirit that's rising up, the vapor will hit that plate, condense, make like a layer of liquid, and kind of cause a reflux action to go on to kind of clean your spirit up more.
Okay.
But we like that full flavor, kind of pot still effect, so we leave those wide open the whole time. And then,
So then what all is happening here?
so over here, as your steam is heating here, your vapor's rising up and over, this is your condenser. So there's 38-degree water circulating around a worm in there, and that's bringing the vapor back to a liquid. And then that comes down here, and then you can run it up through the spirit safe, where you have a kind of a crude hydrometer there that'll kind of let you know about where you're at in the run. And then
That's where
that's where
distillate comes out, right?
distillate comes out there.
So how long does it take to do a run? You fill this up. How long does it take to run it and to use up the product that you have in here?
So about, we're using, it's a 250 gallon batch, so 250 gallons of mash go in the still, and that goes up to temp, and the stripping run takes about 3.5 hours, and that 250 gallons gets reduced down to about 45 to 50 gallons of low wines, and then we do that 2 more times, and then we have 3 of these stainless drums, what we call low wines. Those go back into the still for a spirit run, and then that spirit run is where we make the cuts, as they call them, and kind of clean up the spirit a little bit more. Because during fermentation, you have more than just ethanol being made by your yeast.
Right.
And, some of them have higher boiling points than alcohol or than ethanol. Some of them have lower, and you just kind of try to fraction those undesirable alcohols off.
So how do you know where to make your cuts? You're talking heads, hearts, tails, right?
Heads, hearts, tails. Now I know the process. I know my mash, the system. Kind of do it by temperature and taste too.
Sure.
You kind of taste the heads in there, those kind of stronger, fruitier, estery alcohols.
Right.
And as it kind of progresses into the tails, the kind of wetter, greasier, kind of mouthfeel spirits start coming out, and that's kind of where we cut it off.
So what do you do with your heads and your tails?
You can keep that stuff for cleaning. It can be rerun again, because again, they're not hard cuts, right? There's always going to be some hearts in your tails and heads, so you can rerun that and try and extract more out of it, for sure.
Sure.
And then this thing right here is our gin basket.
That's a big gin basket.
Yep. So yeah, the botanicals will go in there, and then we open that, close that. Instead of the steam rising up the top, it goes through there, infuses, and then through the condenser and out.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I can see the pipe behind it that goes, it feeds up into it, and obviously it goes back down around. So a whiskey run, you say you do it 4 times, right? 3 times, and then you do stripping run.
Yep. So each fermenter will get stripped out. So that's three distillations for low wines, and then that all gets. So the whiskey gets run twice.
Okay.
So two distillations.
So how long? Duration
from start to finish. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7 days until I have something ready to be put into a barrel.
Okay. All right. And until then, you're dropping it into these stainless steel drums that I see behind us.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you actually have a barrel. We're going to see this in a little bit. But you have a barrel up on the mezzanine that you're ready to fill into a barrel. So you have a 55-gallon stainless steel drum.
Full of high wines.
And you're ready to drop that down into...
Yep. We ran that yesterday, so that's been all run through. That's been proofed down to what we barrel proof at, which is 112. And then, the barrel's been all hydrated, checked for leaks, and we'll fill that up.
So your bourbon, this one right here, most distilleries, most craft distilleries, when they start up, they either source a bourbon or a whiskey, right? And they release it relatively young so that they have some product to put out there and start generating some income, even though they're making a gin or a rum and they're doing some other spirits. Or they put out a whiskey that's fairly young at 12 months or 18 months.
Yeah.
You guys chose not to do that.
Correct.
Right.
Tell me why and what the conversation was like, because this whiskey came out last year and it's 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
As our first release.
Yeah. So
I think,
how did you land on
I think initially we knew we didn't want to source anything because from a branding perspective, it seems a little deceptive.
Okay.
At some point you got to pull a bait and switch.
Right.
And there's a lot of that out there, and we just, as people that are deep into we just didn't want to do that.
And seeing how, craft whiskeys, at least in this state, were being kind of received,
in their early
stages, we were trying to kind of help move away from that.
Sure.
And get people more on board with what we were doing. And we waited a full 4 years. It was originally going to be a 2-year straight bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it still tastes a little young. And then the pandemic hit for year 3, and it just ended up staying up until 4. So that's our 4-year single barrel right there.
And everything you do, or your whiskey anyway, your bourbon, everything is a single barrel bottling, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the bourbon,
correct?
yes.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So
and everything is proofed specifically for how that barrel tastes.
Okay. So like this one here, it says it's. Am I looking at the right one? Yes,
103.
103. Yep.
103.
Mhm.
So that's the barrel that it came out of?
No, this is barrel 5.
Barrel 5, and this is bottle 122. That's 103 proof,
Yep.
right? So barrel 6 might be a little bit different proof.
Yeah, we won't know until
We
we
don't
crack
know.
that and taste it. You know, we'll pull samples from that barrel, and we usually run from like I don't know, 110 down to about 95,
Okay.
and get everyone in, some of our regulars that are real big bourbon fans, and kind of make up a little panel and just taste, take notes,
Sure.
and figure out where we want it to be.
So let's talk about the single barreling aspect of it and the
Yeah.
bottling, right? So you're doing every barrel's or every bottling is a single barrel.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting up how many barrels a month of bourbon?
I try to do 4 barrels a month. It's we have a 250-gallon batch system.
So are all your barrels upstairs?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And all your barrels are stored on the 4th level?
Yep,
Mhm.
Is that
4th
correct?
floor. It's kind of a unique space. I know in the state it's no temperature control up there. It kind of mimics an old school Kentucky rick house. We have, gets down to maybe the mid 30s in the winter, upper 90s in the summer, and those nice temperature swings, just moving everything in and out of the barrel, nice low and slow, which definitely contributes to the flavor profile
Sure.
that we have.
I see this barrel sitting here. It's sitting on the floor. This is the barrel we're going to fill, but why is it sitting here on the floor like this?
So, this is the one we're filling today. The night before last night, because our barrels sit a little bit longer than, we don't go through them as fast as Kentucky does. So,
Sure.
It's winter, it's dry, so I put about a bucket, 5 gallons of water in these things overnight just to make sure the heads are nice and swelled up and we don't start leaking all the whiskey out as soon as we dump it in.
It's a good thing.
Yeah,
It'd be a
so,
waste.
yeah, this spent the night hydrating, and it's a char 3 medium, so this will go up for at least 4 years. And we'll check it every 6 months along the way. And
So
see
then
how
when
it's
you
progressing.
hydrate it, you just dump it into this. And it
Yeah,
goes
just dump
into
the
your
water out the
gun.
drain, and it's still, might be a little bit of tan, just it's starting to pick up color already. There you go.
Nice.
We'll rock it, make sure we're not leaking.
Tell me about the name, 10,000 Drops.
That came along pretty quickly, like maybe our first day thinking about a distillery. 10,000 Lakes, Minnesota, and then Rob's moonshine still. We just sit there for hours and just watch it. I mean, we're just watching it drip for like 6
could-
hours in my garage.
Maybe push it to like a pencil stream, but otherwise it was dripping. And
Did you have a smoker going or a barbecue
Oh
or
yeah,
anything?
yeah. I mean, we were cooking up stuff and
yeah, it was 10 hours to run like 30 gallons versus 4 hours to strip out 250 gallons.
yeah.
Well, that makes sense, 10,000 Drops.
Yeah, we thought the nerdy side of us were like, ooh, 10,000 drops is actually a scientific measurement.
We're doing titrations, like
Yeah.
the drop, which we were going to do a 500 ml bottle, which we can't do in the state. Is that?
Yeah, it's just not a bottle that people make.
Yeah.
So like 10,000 drops is 500 milliliters. We're like, oh, cool, half liters, we can do that. And we found out we're like, no, we can't. Those bottles don't exist. It's a weird format. Like,
Oh, that's funny.
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny stuff. Let's talk a little bit about your where you're sourcing your materials from,
Okay.
right? So, if we're talking about bourbon,
I mean, that's where it all starts. As far as best practice.
you're buying all of your corn from.
That's actually a husband and wife team out of Kenyon, Minnesota, Crosswinds Farms. Met them a couple years ago. We were still with another farmer at the time, and we just got really turned on to their practice. Very sustainable, soil health is very important to them.
Sure.
They're not just treating it like a sterile medium. They strip out every year and pump it full of chemicals again the next year. All the corn we use is either organic or transitional, and we also use their wheat as well. Our malted grains come from RAR BSG up in Shakopee, like one of the biggest malting houses in the world.
It is the biggest.
It is the biggest?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got that 30 miles away and happens to be on my commute. So
Yeah, I mean,
swing by and pick it up on your
Throw it in
way.
the back of the car.
Every week either Pat or I pulls the car up and they chuck a bunch of bags in the back and then we drive down here. So
That's actually kind of nice.
drive my Prius in between a bunch of semis and
and then Mike drops off totes of corn, totes of wheat, and then they take all of our spent grains, slurry back after the stillage after we run, and then they compost it or feed it.
and that's, I mean, from our perspective, that's probably the most important thing that they do.
Yeah.
Is actually,
Remove
besides
that.
making amazing grains for us, but we need them to take it all back
Right.
afterwards. Yeah, because we have no way of processing it here, and we distill on the grain. So we've got a full, very wet slurry versus, a drier brewer's grain or something like that.
Yeah.
So the handling is a little different. Sloppy totes.
Yeah, people ask, are they paying you for that? I'm like, no, I'm just happy it's getting gone. So,
We just need to get it out of here.
So your corn comes locally.
Yep.
Your wheat comes locally from a local Crosswinds farm,
Crosswinds
right?
Yep.
Farm, they're 15 minutes east of us.
And then your malted barley comes from, you pick it up on the way here. 'Cause
Yep.
It's one of the biggest malting house. Do you mind telling me what the recipe is?
Yeah, for the bourbon, that's 70% of their corn, 25% unmalted red wheat, and then 5% barley. Wait, did that add up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a wheated bourbon.
Wheated bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then you showed me the mill upstairs where you mill your corn.
Yep.
And you do it by a 5-gallon bucket
5-gallon bucket. So scoop the bucket, goes to the scale, add that on the scale, and it goes to the mill. I think that's why my shoulders are going.
I
But,
can't imagine picking up 5 gallons of grains. So it's a full tasting room, so somebody can come in and they can taste your product. Can they just taste it, or can they come in and just drink? Out of curiosity.
Oh yeah, no, we do. We have a full line of cocktails.
Okay.
Everything from slushies in the summer to hot apple cider drinks in the winter and
Sure.
everything in between.
Okay.
Yeah. In this room, the only new wood that isn't salvage is the bar top.
And that was built for here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was built by somebody in town who actually donated it for us and built it. Everything else is made out of trim it was all here, and we just had to figure out where to put it.
Sure.
yeah, chairs and bar stools are the only thing. I mean, everything else was off marketplace, and the shuffleboard table I traded for a jar of whiskey. Everything else was free.
Had I known that, I'd have built a shuffleboard and brought it.
Yep. A big point is that lead door that goes in between the cocktail room and the distillery. That's one of the old jail doors from Northfield, Minnesota, which is only 10 miles away, kind of a sister city here.
Sure.
And they're famous for the defeat of Jesse James days. So the James Younger gang rolls into town, tried to rob the bank. Townspeople didn't like that too much. A lot of gunfire. Couple people dead and a couple guys thrown in jail in Northfield. So I think Cole Younger, the Younger brothers, they may have been dead, but I think they still threw him in jail back then.
Why not?
So they would have been behind that door at some point.
At some point.
Yeah.
The Younger brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. If you're curious and you're kind of a Younger brother or Jesse James fan, you want to come see the door that some of the Younger brothers were behind at some point, you might want to check it out. Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Great American Whiskey Cookers. Rob, Jake, thank you so much for taking the time today, showing us your distillery, your operation, talking through the whole thing, and your 4-year-old bourbon. Nicely done. Nicely done on the bourbon.
Thank you.
You can find them at 10,000drops.com. Better yet, if you're here in Fairbault, Minnesota, stop in, check them out, drop into the tasting room, have a drink. You can find us at greatamericanwhiskeycookers.com. Until next time, if you can't be good at it. See ya. I'm gonna get your names wrong. You know that, right?
That's totally fine. I'm very used to it.
They spelled it wrong on off 92.
Rob Krachowski. Sounds like a hockey name, doesn't it?
I don't know how many Polish play hockey, but yeah.
It sounds like a hockey name. Hey, one of the things we really enjoy here at the Bourbon Bunker is sitting by the fire, drinking some whiskey with some friends. If we're lucky, maybe you'll get to join us sometime. In order to do that, head over to our Patreon site, subscribe, pledge some money. We would really appreciate the support, especially as we head to the other distilleries. We got a lot more coming up over the course of the next year, 2 years. So check us out. Until next time, if you can't be good at it. See ya.
There you go.
That was it?
Is that it?
That is a wrap.